Hello, and welcome to the final episode in the series. I'm Paul Horton, CEO of Future Water Association, joined by Horizon Water Infrastructure. Today, we're looking ahead. How do we achieve our 2050 goals? What role does smart metering play? And how do we foster innovation and collaboration across the industry? Let's explore the future of water together.
So it's part of the key offering then that you look at things from that more innovative angle across the period of the contract, and that innovation can be in several different areas. You mentioned procurement, obviously. You mentioned adaptability of technology, extended battery life, etc., etc. And I presume as well, innovation will sit in terms of adapting to networks, because the sector has fixed networks, LoRaWAN, NB-IoT, etc. And I presume all your part of your offering will be agnostic to however those change and whichever becomes dominant over time.
Yeah, and I think just to be clear on that point, I think we're agnostic to a degree. We wouldn't use or support a technology that we're not confident will last or deliver the outcomes that a water company is looking for.
And that makes you different to a water company, that if it's bought into something, it has to support that, at least for the period of time it's of which the asset operates, in theory.
Yeah, and it's back to that decision-making process of how does an organisation pick the component parts of their smart metering solution. And I think I've sort of banged the drum on that one enough, rather than just go on about it.
It's not only choosing the component parts, but how do you get them working together? How do you know that when you're not getting data from a meter, you know your meter manufacturer is going to be pointing fingers at the comms provider might be pointing fingers at the installation partner. There are lots of different working parts, and it's about how you get everyone working together, so ultimately you get the data coming in and you can achieve insights from that data, achieve the outcomes that you desire.
Yeah, I think you were asking about continuous improvement when you're in an innovation, and I guess how do you drive that through? If I was a water company and you were saying that to me, I'd say, but you're just saying that because everybody always talks about continuous improvement innovation. You're contracting with me, we're going to agree a price, and then as soon as pen is put to paper, you're going to go off and do something different, and the promise of continuous improvement innovation will disappear, which I think is fair, isn't it? Because I think a lot of people ban that stuff around and it doesn't really happen. So I think there's a bit of, you can say it's culture and you can say it's passion, and that's how we're wired. We're all running businesses, and if you can link a business benefit to why somebody would do that, it's helpful, isn't it? So it is how we're driven, and it is part of our culture, and we all love looking at doing things better, and it is a core value of anybody that works for Horizon, is that we are constantly looking at how we can do things better at all angles and in whatever job role that you do. There's clearly a business benefit to doing stuff better, isn't there? You have a great proposition and more people take your solution. We know we're new to the water sector, but not new to smart metering and to funding smart meters. And getting the reputation of an organisation that's embedded with their customer, hand in glove, truly understand them, are constantly striving and driving to help them perform, will help us win more business, and that's critical. One of the points we haven't touched on is, I guess, how we can use our experience and purchasing power to get the right price, and that's the right price today, but also what would the price be tomorrow? And I think a lot of people, when they think about prices, see about prices going up, and how do you manage that in line with inflation? But there's also the potential that prices can go down. So how do you drive efficiencies in your processes that allow strategic partners who are doing installations to do more a day, which drives the cost per meter down? How can innovation in metering technology improve to bring the price point down on meters? And how do you establish what a fair market rate is? Is it just comparing what everybody else charges, or actually this is the component build up, this is what it costs, and this is what comparable meters cost in other sectors, and actually that could be out of step. So how do you identify that as a water company and drive that down? And then if you can agree a price at point of contracting, you can drive efficiencies through the process over the period of time. If there's a mutual sharing of that benefit, then we're, I suppose, culturally driven to do it because it's the right thing. We're commercially driven to do it because it helps us win more business because we get a market reputation and it hits our P&L. If we can drive efficiencies through the programme, we share that with the water company, then we all benefit. So it is part of our DNA, but we're very much aware of the commercial benefits of driving that through and I guess creating, back to the very beginning of the conversation, that time for us to innovate. It's critical in who we are.
And is that also dependent on having that upfront conversation with the water company to say, if you're going to get this right and allow us to do it right first time, as I think you said before, then actually the conversation needs to be about the 20-year, 25-year water resource thinking, and this is what we need to talk to you about in terms of your targets, your operations, etc. This is how you will get the best out of us.
I think we can give advice, can't we? It's not. I don't think it's about being prescriptive that it has to be 20 years, and it's back to that being a waiter, and every organisation and customer has a different need and want. So I don't think we can be overly prescriptive from that perspective. I think our role is to be experts and to advise. And there's also, I guess, culturally where organisations are on their journey of what they're trying to achieve and when they're ready for that conversation. And again, I think it links back to the transformation piece and everybody rushing from deadline to deadline and submitted to submittal, and whether people have time. I suppose the question to me is, how do water companies and the water sector have time to put the brake on, stop and say, this, we've been making investment and procurement decisions based on this, I guess, guideline structure, whatever we want to call it, for a period of time. Is it right to apply this to this situation to get the right outcomes for our customers? And again, I think to have those conversations about which organisations can create that time, to have that debate, to come to a conclusion, and then for that to inform what they do next. So I 100% believe that our solution is the right solution, or I wouldn't have gone and pitched it to our shareholder or our board, because there's a market need. What we've created is really special, and it ultimately can help water companies deliver fantastic smart meter programs that will benefit their customers and benefit them. It's hard to get cut through when everybody's sprinting. I don't know if you've ever stood on London Bridge when everybody's going to work. You see the herds of people crossing. You try and stop and have a chat with anybody. It's hard, and it feels like that in the water sector. Sometimes you're saying, we've got this amazing thing that's going to really help you. Can we talk about it? And everybody's very polite and decent human beings, but there's a gun to everybody's heads in terms of the next deadline that's got to be delivered. And it's back to the start of the conversation, isn't it? How do you create a pause in the sector to make sure that we're not going off down the wrong pathway that will lead to reputational damage generally about smart metering and water? Because that's what worries me. What worries me is that some decisions could be being made that aren't right for the customer, and that backwashes through the whole sector and the ability to deliver the targets that we need to make sure that the taps don't run dry and all the stuff that I spoke about before. So that's what worries
politics,
me.
Yeah.
Well, it happened. Look at smart meters in energy. There were mistakes made in certain places.
Does the regulator support this approach in energy? Does the regulator understand it, the energy regulator?
Yeah, so what we're doing in water is different to what we did in energy. So the role of Horizon in energy was a MAP contract, and I guess the energy company stood as the party contracting all the various pieces.
Can you just say what MAP is?
Meter asset provider. So Horizon played that role, but we always played sort of the hub of the wheel in terms of trying to coordinate activities to make sure that it was working effectively. In the water sector,
it isn't just a MAP approach in water.
It's not. The word MAP is banned in Horizon water infrastructure. It's not language that we use, and it's not right for the water sector. It's an energy term. We are a fully outsourced smart solution provider that offers a fully funded solution, and that's what we do. And it's different because we offer the total solution. We take accountability and responsibility for delivering the outcomes for our water company customers, and we've built a team of experts within Horizon Water Infrastructure and strategic partners who will deliver a solution that's best in class for the sector and will ultimately deliver the outcomes of leakage reduction and per capita consumption reduction.
Okay, so
Say map again, you can slap me.
So bringing this round to the current AMP period, which is the asset management period for anyone listening who's not aware, or the next 5-year investment period, there are plans to roll out a huge number of smart meters. We're into the millions.
I think it's 8 or something, isn't it? 8.6.
Yeah.
Something like 8.6, but
Yeah.
yeah. So an open question here. There's the Horizon option, which will be fighting against the typical, we've always done it this way, let's buy them and own them option. If we reach the end of the next investment period, so here we are in 2030, we're all sat in the room again, and I'm saying, Tanya, Dan,
You've not aged at all. You all look amazing.
And we've only rolled out 3 million of the smart meters. We're still 5 million short. And your point, Tanya, about the adaptive programme, are we? What does that mean? And in terms of not just what you want to put on the table and that conversation of let's look at this properly, are we in danger of missing the adaptive programme?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a huge risk there, and I think water companies see smart metering as a silver bullet to achieving leakage and PCC goals. And ultimately, if you don't get enough meters in the ground, and not just the meters in the ground, but the data back from those meters, the meaningful engagement, the reduction in CSL, and all of that, the customer behaviour change, if you don't achieve that, we will not meet our 2050 targets. It's going to be huge. I think smart metering, it's easy to say that the drivers for smart metering are clearly leakage, PCC, improved billing, and CMEX improvement. You've got 4 key drivers there, but smart metering for me touches every single facet of a water company business. There's going to be customer service implications. Your operational teams are going to be involved. The whole IT and data landscape changes. Your billing changes. Your regulations teams will be reporting on different elements. There's going to be water efficiency, leakage, WRMP implications. It's transformational for everyone. So these people, processes, technology pillars that lay across all of that, everything changes with the introduction of smart metering. So the risk of us, missing something, of not getting it right first time, absolutely means that we won't hit targets, but it's going to have an impact on not just the leakage teams in a business. It's going to have an impact on the whole business.
And even on the retail side, which I know has a slightly different regulatory system, it's essential they have accurate meter information as well, and we know that's not the case at the moment. So these are wide implications, and back to the do it once, do it right approach. That's what is driving where Horizon's coming from.
Yeah, for sure. I think Becca, my wife, always says I never answer a question. I always come back with options and got other questions. And I think to answer the question about what would you say if you're sat here and there are 3 million meters installed in 5 years' time, and I'd play my it depends answer. I'd much prefer to have 3 million meters that are installed, communicating effectively and with a strong, coherent customer message that sits behind them from day one, than 8 million meters that have been put in the ground without customer engagement programs, the data being used effectively, and there's a smorgasbord of communication that's going on. Because to me, the most important thing is confidence and trust in smart metering from consumers, and that's not just homeowners. There's a whole bucket of consumers, isn't there? And that confidence and trust is pivotal. And it can be eroded really quickly. The press love a good negative smart metering story, as we've seen over the years. And therefore, for the whole sector rather than for Horizon, it's so important that it's done properly, well thought out, and there's a cohesive programme. And I think some of the things that don't exist in water that did exist in energy, and it's not to say it was better or worse, it's just to say that they're not there, and I think it's for a debate, isn't it? That for the energy rollout, Smart Energy GB was created, which was an entity which energy companies were forced to contribute to, whose job was to promote smart metering and the adoption of smart metering. If you've all seen the Einstein adverts, that was the output of some of that activity. I was talking to Carmen, who's our energy expert, yesterday, and she reminded me of the old, I think it was a little gas and electric advert. I pretend I was too old to remember that one, but clearly I'm not. There was that body of communication. So I think what doesn't exist in the water sector is, I guess, the sharing of approaches and debate around what's the right or wrong approach. It seems to be there are lots of silos of decision-making processes going on within water companies about what's the right or wrong approach to this, and coming up with very, very different answers. And I guess clearly there would be a benefit on having that collective conversation around what's the right approach, how can we work effectively to make sure we get this right for all of us. So I think there's that whole comms piece that's missing.
Just to touch on what you said, 3 million installed properly with data being generated that's been used. But actually the 8.6 million infrastructure is an absolute requirement, isn't it? Back to what that means for operations. And others. So that in itself is a fascinating debate. Would we accept 8.6 million at least installed, even if not being used properly, or versus 3 million, which might be being used properly and everything, which is great, but isn't going to be critical in getting that adaptive pathway moving?
Yeah, I guess it's how do you quantify risk? How do you, I guess, put some numbers around unknowns? So the way my brain works is, to deliver the 2050 targets, people have to change their behaviours. And to change behaviours, they need to get on board the bus in terms of how much they use, what they're doing. And they have to have trust in the tools and the information that they're being provided with, and to be bought into that. So I think the question that none of us know the answer to is what damage is done to trust, which will there impact that behavioural change by not doing it well. And that doesn't have to be within a water company's boundaries. That could be somewhere completely different, which gets picked up and washed through. And what's the consequence to delivering those targets? Look, I know the numbers are in the plans, and if you don't deliver the numbers, there's a penalty. So I don't think we should get stuck on 3 and 8 million. I think the question we should be focusing on as a sector is, how do we get these meters put in the ground and make sure it's done properly, that they're working effectively, and really think about how we're communicating to customers consistently as a whole. There's some fantastic examples out there already of water companies and how they're engaging with customers, how they're communicating about smart meters. So this isn't new. There's some great sector examples that could be used already. I guess I'm just keen to ensure that those learnings are taken and considered by all, rather than let's just get them in the ground and we'll worry about what we do later because of the unintended consequences that will have on customer trust.
And that joined up thinking, and that joined up, contributing to a pot of money for a combined marketing message. That's one thing that's different from energy. The communication network choice was also mandated in energy. So that's another big difference in terms of water companies now are choosing, each individual water company is choosing its own comms solution. It may be a blended solution, maybe a number of different solutions, but each company is standing up a network essentially, whereas in energy that was mandated and pretty much done for them.
These sorts of always conversations, always the C word starts coming out, which is collaboration. I play collaboration bingo when I go to conferences, and I think I've gone to a few over the last 10 years that everybody says it and everybody wants it, but it never really happens. So I think there's a need to share learnings. There's a desire, I think, for people to listen, because everybody goes to work wanting to do a good job and get it right for the business they work for and the customers that they serve. But there isn't the forum for those conversations, and there may not be the time. So it always goes back to that time factor and priorities as well. So how do we create a group or a forum where that collaboration can happen, where it's not just the C word that gets bombed out at conferences and everybody says it a year later when they come back and you hear the same thing? how do we get a group of people that really want the right outcomes without too much of a personal interest on what those could be, to deliver the right outcomes for ultimately our country in the long term. I'm not sure. It'd be good to get your thoughts on how to approach that.
Well, the reason we set, as an organisation, set the groups that we have is to promote that collaboration where, from a regulatory viewpoint, there's enforced competition, inverted commas. And it does work. There are examples primarily with leakage. And we need to take hold of that and say, let's build that into talking things about metering. And leakage and metering inextricably tied. So those conversations can happen. It's how we push them further forward and make them part of the everyday business is the critical thing. So probably one final question then, and it's an unfair one to a degree. We've talked about lots of key issues here. So what would be an ideal scenario in terms of metering, in terms of smart metering, in terms of that impact on water resources, the communication with the public, the wider understanding of what's actually happening across our networks and across the wider environment, that allows us to make informed decisions, not just decisions based around best guess, which seems to be like half the issue at the moment.
Yeah, I think my view is this isn't about Horizon Water Infrastructure or whether we're successful or not as an organisation. This is around what do I think is the right pathway to getting the very best smart solutions for water customers in the long term. And I think the first thing on that is getting people together, and that's not just water companies. It's experts who can inform and help understand the pros and cons of every option of that very complex smart metering machine over a 15 to 20 year horizon. So it's fully informing the pros and cons of all the different approaches, and hopefully getting a bit of uniformity, because uniformity brings efficiencies. People want things differently, but there's generally a right and a wrong way of doing stuff. So from a sector perspective, uniformity on approach would bring huge amounts of benefit, and working together. This is me on my little unicorn dancing in a field full of flowers, but that would be ideal. Then I guess it's around how are decisions made on what is the right solution. So you can come up with the unicorn, but does that fit into governance, procurement, regulation, and the structures that are set around that? And I think it's evidenced through some approaches by water companies that you can navigate that. So there are definitely examples of that out there. And then working in the environment of constantly trying to improve it. You know, we're thinking about a 15 to 20 year program, and we go back 15 to 20 years on various technologies. You know, whether it was a car, a phone, or a computer, and what that looked like 20 years ago. I can't remember what. If I had a car that long ago, might have a nice bicycle, and that constant view of making it better, but with the customer in the centre of this. Now, when I talk about smart meters with the sector, it's generally about the technology, it's about the meter, it's about the network solution, it's about financing. But the pivotal bit to me on this is there is a customer at the end of this journey that's got to do something differently for this to work, and that very rarely gets cut through and is at the centre of the conversation, because without that, it's data sat on a system, which doesn't help anything.
People at the centre of this, Tony?
People in terms of customer, people in terms of your water company employees, and people who care and are passionate about delivering these outcomes. People need to be taken on the journey, and we've talked about change and transformation. If you don't involve people in these conversations from day one, you will not get the transformation that you require. So people are going to be core to this. People in terms of skilled, experienced people in the sector. We know there's a skill shortage. We know there's going to be a lack of installers. We know there's a lack of experts in comms technology and meter manufacturing. All of those, that expertise needs to be pulled together, and everyone should have access to those expertise. And I think, in answer to your question, but I quite like that kind of blue sky thinking opportunity. For me, I'd love to see, everyone deliver successful smart metering programs. For me, I'd like the whole smart solution to be more than just smart metering. I'd like to see smart networks. I'd like to see us incorporate noise loggers and vibration sensors and have data on all of our assets, and everyone share their data, and everyone, us to be able to build up a history of insights to understand how to optimize everything that we do going forward. I think big data is the goal.
Data and people.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good point to end on. Dan, Tanya, thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul.
Cheers, mate.
And that's it. We've covered transformation, smart metering, and the future of water. The challenges are big, but the solutions are within our reach if we act now. Thank you for listening. Thank you to our partner, Horizon Water Infrastructure, and let's keep the conversation going. See you next time.